Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Early Edge. My name is Sia Nejad, otherwise known as the Counselor of Cash. And this show is brought to you by BetMGM. Of course, this is the Early Edge, and we've got a lot of you in the chat. Cleveland Clown is in here. Big Cheesy, Kylie Reynolds, M. Baller, Farzad is in here. Scott Edwards. Thanks for being in here. Hit the like button if you could. A great Monday show coming up. Let's see how we did on Friday and last week, because we got a busy recap screen. We go 9-8. Overall, EC hits his parlay, that parlay that carried over to the weekend. That one hits. Buckets hits his play. SportsLine picks don't do quite as well. I go 2 for 2 in my props. Doing really well on that NFL prop show that, of course, I'm on with Proppy, Claudia, and Dave Richardson. Make sure you always tune into that every Friday at 3 o'clock. But ladies and gentlemen, it's 10 o'clock, which means we got to bring in the stars of the show. Let's go ahead and do it. Monday, we always got a dream team. It's Mike McClure, it's Mikey B, it's PropStarz, and it's Larry Hartstein. And gentlemen, as much as I want to get to picks right away, I don't think I'd be doing my job if we didn't react to NFL Wildcard Weekend in whatever way you all wanted to react to it. So, Larry, I'm going to go around the horn really quick. Your reaction, start us off to a wild weekend.
Well, Sia, you've had a lot of big days in your life. I'm assuming, getting married, having kids, passing the bar, cashing in the World Series of Poker. But having a day where you can cash a bet on Trevor Lawrence and then dunk on him as the reason why they lost and their season is over has to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know that I thought that was Trevor's fault necessarily. I wasn't necessarily tweeting out stuff like that, but I loved the line. He ended up throwing for 3 touchdowns. It was a really good bet at the end of the day, but anybody could have won that game, Larry. Anybody. Go ahead, follow up.
Yeah, but I just think, his inaccuracy, forcing the ball there into coverage when you just need a couple of first downs. We have a great kicker, just showed that he wasn't quite ready for the moment. Another guy who wasn't quite ready for the moment, believe he's keeping his job, is Matt LaFleur, punting on 4th and 2 from the 45-yard line, up 21-6. Very cowardly move there. And I think we saw why Caleb Williams was the #1 overall pick. That 4th and 8 throw, I've watched it so many times. I don't think there's another QB that could have made that play.
So Caleb makes some amazing throws. I will say this about Trevor. It did look to me like Parker Washington was over on a deep crossing pattern slant, and he had a step, and the sideline was the boundary. Like, he could have just thrown it to the sideline. Either Parker was going to catch it or nobody was going to catch it. That would have put them in field goal range. That's how I saw it, at least. Probably, we haven't brought up the Eagles yet. Your reaction to that loss against San Francisco?
Disappointing loss for the Philadelphia Eagles. A disappointing day for yours truly. Going 0-2. Eagles being bounced from the playoffs. I was very nervous when the betting consensus seemed to be overwhelmingly supporting the Eagles. That being said, it was a difficult season for the Eagles. The offense really never clicked. The offensive line had trouble staying healthy. Barkley didn't look like the same running back that rushed for over 2,000 yards last year. And then A.J. Brown having difficulties throughout the season. That came to a head yesterday as well. Looks like he may be playing for another team next year. Certainly a new offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. Just a disappointing day, but what do, Sia? We pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves off, and then we look forward to tonight.
The trifecta of Barkley rushing props was discussed pretty emphatically on the prop show. All 3 of them hit. Shout out to Uncle Dave. I hit mine. And then we talk about the longest rush that also ended up hitting really early. Mike, quick reaction to NFL Wildcard Weekend.
Yeah, lots of thoughts. A.J. Brown's got to go. Love the guy. I've met him a few times. He's a great guy. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL. He cannot play in Philadelphia. He has to go somewhere else. And I think that'll definitely happen. And then after what I saw last night, I know Justin Herbert was dealing with a beat-up offensive line. I thought Harbaugh was awful in that game from a coaching standpoint as well. So that I thought that was a little surprising to see. But yeah, great football. Josh Allen put the superhero cape on again. I don't know what that franchise would look like if they didn't allow Josh to be Josh, frankly. That they'd be one of the bottom 5 teams in the NFL with literally any other quarterback.
Mikey B, are you going to weigh in on NFL, or are you just so anti-NFL right now because of NBA season?
No, I'm not anti-NFL. I'm only anti-NFL on Christmas. That's the day is devoted to what Mike was saying. Josh Allen's just incredible. He just puts this team on his back. There's so many holes in that Bills team. I don't know if he's going to survive too many more rounds here. It was impressive that he was able to get that win yesterday.
All right. Well, we've got a lot to talk about on this show. I think there's a good amount of Steelers sentiment, or I should say pro Steelers sentiment on this show. So we'll let that unfold as we normally do. But Mike, I'm going to let you kick us off because you got to play. It's a teaser or an alt line. I don't know how you're going to address it, but it implicates the total and the spread in this Steelers-Texans game.
Yeah, played a little alt line SGP, call it what you will, teaser. It falls under the category of an SGP now in today's betting world. But I took the Steelers on the alt line of 4.5, and I paired it with the under 44.5 in this game, plus 110. For me, it's very similar to just playing the plus 4.5. And when I look at my simulations in the distribution as far as how often the Steelers cover at the number of 4.5, overwhelming number of those simulations indicate the game also being under 44.5 here. So I think the correlation in this particular spot, considering the weather, the style of play, the stakes of the game, I think that correlation kind of separates and breaks from where the pricing algorithms would have it in terms of a normal NFL game. I don't think it's quite adjusted to where this is. Again, whether or not the Steelers cover the 4.5 remains to be seen, but I like the Steelers plus 4.5 in this number paired with that 44.5. We all talk about how key numbers and totals in the NFL, 44 and 43 being the most key. But for me, the fact that I could get there in a 24-20 game, like if the Texans get to 24, I think that's a really, really strong outcome for them in these conditions. So I'll play this SGP here plus 110 on Steelers plus 4.5 and under that key number of 44.5.
All right. A lot of commentary on whether or not the Steelers can win this game. Again, I think and we saw, Mike, the line opened, correct me if I'm wrong, at 3.5 and has largely been bet down to 3. Any reaction to that?
I mean, I agree with the movement. I think the Steelers have a very good chance to win this game outright. I think when it comes to playoff football, it's probably the most difficult environment to walk into in these circumstances. Primetime Monday night in the cold. I personally don't think CJ Stroud's very good playing outdoors in the cold. A lot of that offense really kind of relies on, some of the bigger plays that they're able to make rely on timing and ideal conditions. And this is the complete opposite of that.
All right. We've got Big Cheesy in the chat with some NBA plays. Cooper Flagg over 12.5 rebounds and assists. I will tell you, we've got a few NBA plays on this show. One from Larry Hartstein. And of course, Mikey B is going to weigh in as well. But let's stick with football for now. PropStarz, you're looking ahead to next week on Colston Loveland. But how about you kick us off with Kenneth Gainwell and his receptions prop?
Indeed, Sia. Yeah, we talked about this one on our Friday prop show. This is a prop that I liked quite a bit. I've liked quite a bit. Decided to pull the trigger. Kenneth Gainwell under 5.5 receptions. That is a massive line. That is typically Christian McCaffrey territory when we talk about receiving running backs. Yes, Kenneth Gainwell has been a reliable target for Aaron Rodgers, but 6 receptions in this low volume passing attack with DK Metcalf back. The emergence of Adam Thielen, who was also acquired by the Steelers. You have Pat Freiermuth, who stepped up as well. This is just going to be a low-volume passing attack. Very likely see a very balanced game plan here. To have 6+ receptions, he's going to have to continue to function as that primary target for Aaron Rodgers. I think betting against that 6 reception here is a very sharp move, personally. So just a big number for Gainwell, who has been very good, but asking any running back to get 6 receptions that's not Christian McCaffrey is a tall order here. So I think this is just a very good spot to fade him under 5.5 receptions. I would pass, however, at 4.5, even at plus money. Definitely want that extra reception here. And then also looking ahead to next week in that Bears-Rams game, going to fade Colston Loveland. I actually loved RJ White's play on Loveland, fading him this week. I know he had the big game, but we're not results oriented here for this Bears offense. Now we're getting a much bigger number. This move north of 46.5 to now 53.5 in what I consider a much more difficult, or at least equally as difficult matchup against a Rams pass defense that's been good, but they've been very good against tight ends this season. They've given up the 6th fewest yards to the tight end position on the year. And then we look look at this Bears offense, there's just a lot of mouths to feed. You've got Roma Dunze back. You also have the emergence of Luther Burden. You just have a lot of guys capable of catching passes. Loveland, I think, was going to have to continue to function as the number one option. I don't think he's capable of doing that. I think we've seen him play well, but again, just a very large total in what is a more difficult matchup. I'm going to go under 53.5 receiving yards for Loveland. I think this ultimately ends up closing under 50 yards as well.
I can't wait to get to later in the week when we have some official plays. And I'm looking over to my left because I want to see if since last night that Rams-Bears line has adjusted a little bit. I thought I saw 3.5 in some places and 4.5 in others, and I'm seeing 3.5 in a lot of places. Now, Larry, any reaction to that line?
Yeah, the 4.5 openers were gobbled up. We're seeing mostly 3.5s there. The Bills opening as small favorites in Denver, 1.5, and Seattle laying about a touchdown to the Niners right now.
Anything that, Mike, I'll go to you. Any of those three jump out to you like, ooh, maybe I should jump on something now?
Yeah, personally, I love the 49ers plus 7.5. Just the matchup. They're prepared for the matchup. I know they're beat up with injury, like just absolutely beat up. I think they still have a great coaching situation, and CMC is going to be on the field. Tonjes is more than capable offensively in the passing game. Yeah, just while you can still gobble up that 7.5, I think the number should be 6. Frankly, I think it's a little off in that spot, but these teams are just so familiar with one another. You'll see a lot of people probably leaning under. I don't know that they have it to win it outright at plus 260, but 7.5, I would play that with the 49ers now. I don't expect it to last.
Larry, I'll come to you now, but I will say that on the CBS Sports Network show at 12 o'clock, we're going to do a lot of look-ahead stuff, and we're going to deep dive into props. If you have prop questions about this Monday Night Football game, put them in the chat, but we're going to deep dive passing, rushing, receiving, game props, first touchdown scores. We even have an SGP to give out on this show with everybody contributing with a leg here. Larry, your reaction?
Yeah, you can still get an expensive 4.5 if you like the Bears to keep it close. The total I thought opened too low at 50.5, despite how bitter cold it's going to be in Chicago. Now we're seeing 51s, even some 51.5. I mean, that game to me, if the weather is just cold and not super windy, could be 34-31.
All right. Don't mind that play either. I mean, I would lean to the Rams here on the road, but I mean, I hesitate to say that because I know everybody thinks I'm a Bears and Caleb hater. I really like the Rams this year. Tonight, you can get your stake back in cash if your first touchdown scores second instead. Bet on any pro football player to score the first touchdown of the game. If you're right, you win. If your player scores second, you get your stake back in cash. That's your standard BetMGM second chance promo. Make sure you get in on that. And if you have any first touchdown scores that you like tonight, put them in the comments or put them in the YouTube comments because I want to hear from you when it comes to that. I'm leaning towards Pat Freiermuth there at, I think, plus 1,700. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to get to some NBA and we got to get to some more football, and we definitely got to get to some of your questions right after this message from our partners.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
We're back on the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM. Mikey B, let's start talking some NBA. We've got a few NBA picks for tonight, and you're going to kick us off.
First, we're going to start off with Peyton Pritchard over 22.5 points at minus 109. The big news for this game, Jaylen Brown is listed as doubtful with a back injury. Now, he's missed 2 games previously this season. The first game that he missed, Pritchard scored 20 points on 21 shot attempts against the Wizards. Second game, he had 33 points on 24 shot attempts against the Raptors. So in a game where he could get around 20 shot attempts against a Pacers team that ranks 20th in the league in defensive rating, I like him to go over 22.5 points. And then we're going to go to a little bit of a lesser-known name, Sam Merrill, over 11.5 points at minus 120. He is averaging just under 15 points a game over 10 games since returning from injury. That's included him scoring at least 15 points in 5 straight. No Dean Wade for the Cavaliers tonight, so that should help Merrill in terms of minutes. Also helping his cause, he's playing the Jazz, worst defensive rate in the league. This game is in Cleveland where Merrill is shooting 51.5% from the field this season. So I like him to stay hot and go over 11.5 points.
All right. I couldn't help but find out that at the beginning of the show, like right when we got started, Larry, Jeff Stenberg said, did Larry happen to see that Matthew Golden touchdown? Your reaction, Larry?
Yeah, I mean, Matthew Golden looked great, and he looked like he should have looked all season, and it was just kind of rubbing it into me, and I knew we were going to bring that up.
PropStarz, I'm going to let you react to that. Sometimes when somebody scores a touchdown and I feel like the announcers don't react in a grand enough way, that play by Matthew Golden, just eluding all of those tacklers, was absolutely outstanding. And it just felt like we all looked at it because of how the announcers addressed it, like it was just, just same old touchdown. PropStarz, your reaction?
Very likely the announcers also were on the over with Larry, so on their season-long total. So they were disappointed that it finally took week one of the playoffs to unleash the full talents of Matthew Golden.
I will say that I was able to pull, and I don't know if this is even good etiquette, but I was able to pull this. I won a side bet against Uncle Dave, and I told Dave, "Hey, you send Alex the money," and he did. So.
No, that's okay. That's good etiquette. You can do that.
Hang Uncle Dave out to dry, out to for the public here.
So true. Uncle Dave from the Prop Show still has a prop remaining. I know he's 1-1 on the weekend. I think he has one prop remaining on tonight's game. So go back to the Prop Show and check that out if you want to know what Uncle Dave is on. So I'm going to be on. This is a little unorthodox. It's not a straight prop. I will tell you that I consider taking Pat Freiermuth over 31.5 receiving yards. That best number is at BetMGM because most books have it at 32 or 33.5. I really like Pat Freiermuth in this game, but just with such a large distribution of pass catchers for the Steelers, I just hesitated just enough for me to stay off of it. What I will say is that I really like this plus number on Jaylen Warren to have the most rushing yards in the game. So you can find this at any book under game props or team props, game leaders, things of that nature. I know BetMGM has the best number here at plus 120. DK definitely has this, and I'm sure FanDuel has it as well. But Jaylen Warren, most rush yards, plus 120. Again, best number at BetMGM. This is a case of really me fading Woody Marks because I don't think Kenny Gainwell, of course, he's a pass catcher and he will get some rush attempts, maybe as many as 7, 8. I think Jaylen Warren, if you look at his rush attempt prop, it's in that 12 to 13 range. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he gets to 13, 14. You look at Woody Marks' rush attempt prop, it's in that 15 range. But when you look at their rushing yards as a total, they're very close to each other. You basically have Jaylen Warren in the 48 to 52 range, and you have Woody Marks in the 52 to 56 range. Long story short here, the Texans, beyond a bad offensive line, seem to find any excuse possible to avoid giving Woody Marks a full carry load. And we saw that with Jawar Jordan. Then Jawar Jordan got banged up. And we saw British Brooks. Nobody's ever heard of British Brooks. He comes in and gets a ton of carries as well. Obviously, Nick Chubb is still on this team. So I would lean to Woody Marks unders, like under 56.5, for example, if you can find that number, under his carry prop. But what I'd rather take is the plus money on Jaylen Warren, because if I'm right that Woody Marks doesn't get there, I do think they run Jaylen Warren enough. And I've seen this Houston Texans defense give up some rushing yards, especially over the last few weeks, and the way Jaylen Warren runs, the fact that he's at home, I just really like him to edge out all the other running backs, and I just love that I'm getting a plus number here, plus 120, plus 115, wherever you find it, but again, best number at BetMGM. Let's stick with the Steelers, Larry. We got some questions in the chat, but I want you to talk to me about the Steelers plus 3, and then you've got an NBA prop as well.
Yeah, I'm not making the case that the Steelers are some great team, but I want to talk about that as they're currently constituted, they are better than what we think of them. Because I'm just starting in the trenches. You talk about guys like TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Derek Harmon. These guys who were in and out of the lineup, they are all there back for this game and have been back for a couple of weeks. And then if you look at the offensive line, talk about the left tackle, Dylan Cook, a guy who comes out of nowhere, 27 years old, undrafted free agent out of Montana, playing amazing at left tackle. And it took 2 injuries for him to get there because Broderick Jones was the starter. He wasn't playing well, had a season-ending injury. Andrews Pete replaced him. He had a concussion. And now this guy, Dylan Cook, has come in. He is number 9 in pass blocking, according to PFF. And everybody's talking about the improvement of the Steelers' offensive line. And it starts with left tackle Dylan Cook. And I agree with you. Jaylen Warren has been playing great. He's been running the ball well the last 3 games. And I think a lot of that has to do with Dylan Cook in the lineup. And Mike talked about it before with CJ Stroud outside. The numbers are just not as good. 59% completion, 6.4 yards per attempt compared to indoors, 66% and 8 yards per attempt. Those are career splits for CJ Stroud. I just think it's going to be a tight game. I wish I'd gotten 3.5. I'm not saying the Steelers win it, but 20-18, 20-17, something like that. Either way is how I see this one going. So I'm going to grab the points with the Steelers. And then in the NBA tonight, we have a total of 250 in Cleveland because the Utah Jazz are in town with their very bottom of the barrel, worst defense in the NBA, coming to Cleveland. The total is 250. I took Darius Garland over 27.5 points, assists, rebounds. I would play it a little smaller if you can only get 28.5. But this guy shoots better at home. He scores more at home. This is a dream matchup. They're so bad overall defensively, but especially against opposing guards. Just hope it's not a 20-point blowout. That could derail this prop, but I love Garland to go off tonight over 27.5.
All right, we got the Steelers. We got Garland. Looking for more questions in the chat. Mike, we haven't really – we did the NFL wildcard recap, but we didn't give Ben his flowers and all the Chicago fans in the chat, or at least the Midwest Chicago area fans, because not only did Chicago win in dramatic fashion, and honestly, we could spend a whole show on that Green Bay collapse, because I don't know that I don't recall seeing – maybe you all can recall in the chat or in the YouTube comments, that type of collapse where it just seemed like the game was totally in hand. It seemed like one team was definitely better than the other team. And then just, I don't know how else to address it other than incompetence. It just seems so incredibly bad. But Mike, and Proppy, I'm going to let you react to that. Mike, I want to give Ben his flowers by at least addressing the fact that Indiana is in the national championship. Indiana versus Miami, forgive me, I'm trying to find out what the current line is right now. I think it's in that 6-7 range. But Mike, any thoughts on the national championship?
Yeah, it's at 7.5 currently, which just a major adjustment from what we saw going into the semifinal games. The look ahead was 3.5 to 4.5, and then it kind of ballooned to 5.5, and then ultimately went up to 7.5 here. And keeping in mind, this game is in Miami. It is close to a home game for the Miami Hurricanes. Obviously, Indiana will travel well. They will spend a ton of money. They will find a way into the stadium. It's obviously such a historic moment for that school and the program. I can't wait to watch it. I still make the number closer to 4.5 to 5. Having said that, Indiana continues to just roll and absolutely roll. I think they have a massive coaching edge. I think Cristobal is one of the worst in-game coaches in the sport. So I would lean towards Miami with the points. It would not be a comfortable click though.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Addressing, I think it was you, Larry, that, and I'll get to you in a second, Proppy. Was it you or Mike that was on that kind of leaned towards San Francisco next week? I do want to remind everybody that it did feel, even though it was 13-3, it did feel like San Francisco got manhandled in that game in San Francisco. But don't forget, Trent Williams was not in that game. And I know George Kittle isn't in for this one, but I do expect, I'm just prognosticating here a little bit, that Ricky Pearsall will probably be healthy enough to play next week. That is a big difference in terms of stretching that defense a little bit. Proppy, you wanted to react to that Packers analysis that I gave.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago, I believe week 14, when the Packers were 9-3-1. They've lost 5 consecutive games, including the postseason. So that collapse in that game yesterday was sort of a microcosm for their entire season. They got off to a very good start. At one point, they were Super Bowl favorites as well prior to Micah Parsons' injury, and were 9-3 in week 14. So, yeah, a collapse of Green Bay, and their season collapsed as well, and a collapse in the postseason here as well. So disappointing end to their season.
I think now's a good time to – oh, Larry, you had something to follow up as well.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Shanahan asked for a Sunday game, and instead they got the Saturday game. You know, if any team needed that extra day, it was the 49ers, but they didn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just classic 49ers. I don't know if everybody remembers me and Chip very vaguely and quickly addressing the electrical substation, electromagnetic frequency stuff near Levi Stadium. I mean, listen, I don't like to do the conspiracy theory stuff, but Larry, do you know what I'm talking about? And this feels like after the Kittle injury and noting all the devastating injuries for the 49ers over the last 5 to 10 years, random ones at that. Not that Kittle was random necessarily, but like, who was it? The guy who was Navarro Bowman? No, it wasn't Bowman. Was it Bowman? Yeah, running onto the field. And anyway, Larry, any credence to that stuff? Or do you buy in at all?
I only saw a couple of headlines about that possibly being related to soft tissues, but injuries, but I did not investigate.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that? No. Danny Brasco says there's an upside down world under Levi Stadium. All right, let's look at our SGP legs because Scott Edwards says, any thoughts on Freiermuth? And that is my SGP leg. Ben, let's put that up because each of us have a leg here. And if you want to listen, you can swap any of these out that you don't like, right? But we've got an MNF Monday Night Football SGP that pays plus 1140. We each put in a leg. Again, feel free to drop legs if you want. My leg is Pat Freiermuth, 25 plus receiving yards. I actually do think Freiermuth's going to hit his over 32 yards, but I'm going to add the 25 plus leg. Maybe he gets one less catch than I anticipate, but I do think he's going to be a trusted target for Aaron Rodgers. Larry, why don't you talk about your leg real quick?
5 catches last week for Jaylen Warren. You can't throw every running back pass to Kenneth Gainwell, and you have to get the ball out fast. We know that against Houston in the pass rush. They've given up 20 catches to the running back position in the last 4 games. So I think Jaylen Warren gets to 2 catches. And I also love Mikey B's play just because the Steelers have been weak against the slot, and Schultz does run a lot of slot routes.
Absolutely. I know, Mike, you already talked about your Steelers plus 4.5. Mikey B, talk to me about Dalton Schultz. And I will say, because this is an SGP and I used an alt line myself, if you want to take Dalton Schultz down to 30 plus, I mean, it's going to be super juicy, but it's not going to bring down the SGP tremendously. Mikey B, talk to me about 41.5 receiving yards.
Schultz is a very important part of the Texans passing game. And like Larry said, the Steelers have been very bad against tight ends. They've allowed the 4th most receptions and the 5th most receiving yards in the league to the position during the regular season.
All right. And Kenneth Gainwell under 5.5 receptions. Proppy, I know you talked about that. Proppy, let me ask you this. And Larry, maybe I'll get your reaction and then we'll eventually get to the recap screen here. We're looking at a lot of receptions here for we know what Aaron Rodgers does. It's the short area. He gets the ball out in basically 2.5 seconds. We look at Jaylen Warren maybe with 2 or 3 catches. We look at Pat Freiermuth maybe for somewhere between 2 and 4 catches. We look at Gainwell hopefully for 5 or less catches, but somewhere between 3 and 5. We still have DK Metcalf on this team. Guys like Adam Thielen have stepped it up. The completions prop last week hit for Aaron Rodgers. It was a play I was almost on. It's 20.5 in some places. Proppy, with all these short area throws, even against a great defense, it's hard to stop a lot of the short area stuff that gain 3, 5, 6, 7 yards. Your thoughts on over 20.5 completions for Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I don't mind that. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I know that's the focal point of this Arthur Smith-led offense. Aaron Rodgers is very comfortable throwing short and getting rid of the football quickly. So, he's comfortable throwing the ball or completing 25 passes to the tune of 100 yards as long as the chains are moving. So if you wanted to back Rodgers specifically, that would be definitely one I'd look at.
Larry, I know you and I both love an attempts or completions over or under. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm not playing it. I do think that the Texans have shown a little bit of vulnerability against the run game. So I think Jaylen Warren is definitely going to be featured that way. But I agree with you. What the Texans do, what you want to do against the Texans is exactly what Aaron Rodgers already does, which is get the snap and throw it right away to a running back or a tight end. And I think with Lassiter back, I mean, these Steelers wideouts are in deep trouble against Stingley and Lassiter. Those might be 2 of the top 10 corner. Well, Stingley might be the best corner in the league, and Lassiter might also be a top 10 corner.
There's a lot of unders to like in this game, and I think it's. I think those receivers, I actually think in the rushing department too, I like a lot of unders. Probably go ahead.
I would offer as a counter to that, I mean, this Texans defense will definitely be prepared for Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball quickly. Easier said than done in application. I would also offer, because they can get consistent pressure without blitzing, that just enables them to be extra sticky in coverage. Having basically, 8 guys drop back in coverage is very difficult. So I don't think it's just as easy as Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball quickly. I think it'll be a chess match, but yeah, I think the Texans will be prepared for Aaron Rodgers getting rid of the ball quickly as well.
I totally agree. It's part of the reason I don't like the Freiermuth as much. Like, I like the Freiermuth overs, but I almost prefer the receptions, which is 3.5. It's in that minus 105 plus 100 range because I don't see a lot of yak. I don't see a lot of downfield stuff. Freiermuth's routes have been going a little bit longer, but I feel like catch and you're down. But there might be a lot of tip passes, a lot of incomplete passes, which is why Danny Brasco was in the chat saying, I like Rodgers over attempts the most when it comes to the quarterback stuff. All right. I think there was one other thing. Oh, Aaron Bailey wants to know, Mike McClure. Tennis, anyone? What's going on with tennis this week in the Australian Open?
Yes, asking if I'll have some tennis. I will have some tennis for the Aussie Open a little later in the week, not today. But yes, a little later in the week, probably bring one to the show Thursday. And then over in the SportsLine Discord, we'll be talking a little Aussie Open. We're going to get through football tonight, and then we've got 2 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, no football. That's when I'll be over there in the tennis streets a little more.
And that's Tuesday and Wednesday is a perfect time for me to start breaking out the golf bets. The Sony Open odds are out. The outright odds are out. And Mike knows this as well as anybody. We're going to get more odds and more matchups and things of that nature that will populate over the next 24 hours. The early wedge debuts for this season tomorrow at 7 o'clock. EC will be hosting. It'll be me, Patrick McDonald, and Jason Sobel joining him. That's tomorrow at 7 o'clock on the SportsLine YouTube channel. I cannot wait for that, but a lot of picks as they relate to golf will be exclusively on the early edge, especially later in the week. But I'll have a pick on tomorrow's show as well to just kind of tease the Tuesday night show. All right. I think we got to most of the questions. Let me see.
See if I could just chime in. We actually were blessed with something that has never happened in NFL playoff history, which is 4 playoff games on the same weekend decided by 4 or fewer points. And even that Patriots, dominance of the Chargers was 9-3 in the fourth quarter at one point. So I'm just hoping that we can complete it with another thriller tonight, because that would seriously be historic.
M. Baller wants to know about the weather tonight. We're just looking at cold weather. Nothing crazy with wind or precipitation, Mike. Nothing. I mean,
yeah, mostly
like 30
just
degrees.
Cold. I will run it again real quick, but yeah, mostly just cold is what I was expecting.
And you'd agree it doesn't really impact the game outside of the fact that the Texans typically, they play their home games indoors. So this is a little bit of a different environment for CJ Stroud and company.
Yes. So all the things, right? It's the cold weather. It will be pretty cold. High temperature, probably 27, 30 degrees, somewhere in there. So wind chills, low 20s, high teens. But in that stadium, 10 to 12 mile per hour winds it kind of plays closer to 20 to 25 compared to some of the other stadiums in the league. And why I would say that's important is not only the baseline for that Texans offense in controlled conditions. How about a kicker that kicks 90% of his kicks indoors as well? That's something to note in a game that's likely to be decided by field goals.
Sox Nation, I want to note his comment. He says, great show, gentlemen. Best sports show on YouTube. Very much appreciate that. Sox Nation, if you haven't already reviewed the podcast on Apple or Spotify, please go do that. It takes like 5 or 10 seconds. And I know you're a big part of this family. You've been here for a long time. Going over there and spending 10 seconds to give us a 5-star review and maybe drop a few words is actually helpful for the show in a bigger way than you might think. So hopefully some people can take the time to do that. But either way, very much appreciate that comment. All right. I think it's probably, what? Jonathan Archer says, I never take INT props, but I'm on the network show at 12 o'clock. We're going to have this entire team plus Danny Brasco on the network show, by the way. I'm going to drop a passing prop, and I'll just let you know what it is. CJ Stroud to throw an interception. Now, Jonathan has this at minus 120 for both quarterbacks. I think I saw it at minus 105 at a major book. I think CJ Stroud is going to throw a pick in this one. I just want to throw that out there. So even though I don't normally take INT plays, never put in an official INT play, I kind of like that tonight for CJ Stroud, especially considering the elements and things of that nature. All right. Aaron Bailey says this show is so much more than sports. Appreciate that comment as well. Let's get to the recap screen before we get everybody out of here. I'm on Jaylen Warren. Now, this is under like a game leaders situation at your sports book. Jaylen Warren, most rushing yards in the game, not for the Steelers, out of everybody. This is plus 120, plus 115 in some places. We're going to stick with some Steelers stuff. Steelers plus 3 at minus 114. That's from Larry Hartstein. He also likes Darius Garland over 27.5 PRA, points, rebounds, and assists at minus 125. Speaking of the NBA, Mikey B likes Peyton Pritchard over 22.5 points at minus 109 and Sam Merrill over 11.5 points at minus 120. Mike McClure on an SGP, Steelers plus 4.5 and the under 44.5 at plus 110. Next, we go to PropStarz. Kenneth Gainwell under 5.5 receptions, minus 154, and Colston Loveland under 53.5 receiving yards next week at minus 115. Now let's go to our SGP legs. Again, this SGP plays plus 1140. Toy around with it if you want. Add picks, take out picks, whatever you want to do, but these are our picks. I've got Pat Freiermuth with 25 plus receiving yards. That's an alt line. Minus 185 is the true number there. Jaylen Warren, 2+ receptions from Larry Hartstein. Steelers plus 4.5 from Mike McClure. Dalton Schultz over 41.5 receiving yards from Mikey B. And Kenneth Gainwell under 5.5 receptions at minus 154. Again, those 5 legs pay $11.40. We're going to be bringing you SGP legs and SGPs for the rest of the show. I think that that was your idea, right? I think it's a great idea.
And if this hits, I will give something away on Twitter or X.
Does anybody want to throw out? Thank you, Proppy. Absolutely love that. Does anybody want to give out a first touchdown score before we? I'm going with Pat Freiermuth. Hey, hand up. Does anybody want to give out a first touchdown score?
Jaylen Warren, 10-1.
Ooh, that's a good number. All right,
that is a good number.
If you watching have a first touchdown score, put it in the YouTube comments. You don't even need to put the number attached to it. Just if you want, you can, but just tell us who you want to put in there. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Connor Hayward plus 3,500. Some spots up to 40-1. They run their own tush push. The defense is stout. He had 3 rushing attempts in the last must-win game. It doesn't map. And I would also consider Jonnu Smith. I think they've got a package in there where it's essentially a fake on the tush push kind of end around to Jonnu.
We saw it from Jonnu a few weeks ago where he ran it in like from 9 yards. I don't know if it was a tush push formation or not, but it was something in that hemisphere. Hayward.
I'd play Jonnu rushing yards if they offered it, but it's not offered yet. It may be offered right before the kickoff, but yeah, I think he has probably 5 to 7 rushing yards tonight.
Mike B says Dalton Schultz. That's certainly a good play as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get you out of here. Join us on the network show today at 12 o'clock, but a lot of content coming your way this week, including the fact that golf is back. So make sure, buckle up and join us at 7 o'clock tomorrow night for that one. We are out of here. Larry Hartstein, PropStarz, Mikey B, thanks for joining us. And of course, big congratulations to Ben. His teams just keep advancing. The Bears and the Hoosiers. That's a shout out to the sniper, Matt Snyder, as well, because those are his teams as well. And I know there are a lot of your teams in the chat, so we'll keep rooting for you. Although I got to say, my NFC West which I gave out last week, NFC West to win the Super Bowl, an NFC West team at plus 135. I can't be rooting for the Bears the whole way because I want one of those teams to win the Super Bowl. 3 out of 4 remaining in the NFC are NFC West teams, which is pretty staggering. Andrew Paredes says, go Bears. Go NFC West. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining the show. Have a great day. Maybe we'll see you at 12 o'clock. Maybe not. Either way, have a great Monday. See you next time on The Early Edge. We rest our case.